So the Houston Astros, while they didn't play like it for a lot of the season, second half as a whole, they have looked much more like the Houston Astros, although they haven't played all that great in September, which has opened the door for both the Mariners and Rangers to crawl their way back into the AL West race.
Which is flabbergasting because their lineup, Lyle, is mashing. Oh my God. We were kind of wondering throughout the season, man, when are all the Astros going to click? They haven't all been healthy at once. Altuve missed the first bit of the season after his injury in the World Baseball Classic, and they weren't hitting like they usually do. Last 2 months, they have a team WRC plus of 134. Team WRC plus of 134. And we watched the Mariners face them this season, and it's really been no issue for the Mariners pitching staff going against that lineup and shutting it down. I have a sneaking feeling it might be a little bit different when they face them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week.
I am happier than can be that the Mariners have had the success that they've had against the Astros. But in these type of games, this is where Houston thrives, man. They've been there. They're used to this. Not that the Mariners haven't. They were in the postseason last year too. But this group of Astros has a ton of experience and workload in high-pressure games. This is the type of games that they'll thrive in, along with the fact that their offense has been so red hot. You mentioned their team WRC+. They've been great in September. They've been great since August. They're going to hit, especially now that they have Yordan Alvarez back. You know this lineup's going to hit. While Alex Bregman, by the way, has quietly had one of the best seasons of his career. So this is not going to be an easy out for the Mariners. It will help that they have Luis Castillo and George Kirby pitching at home, but it's not going to be an easy series.
And the third guy that will throw for the Mariners will be Bryce Miller, and Bryce has pitched pretty well against the Astros this season, shockingly enough. With that formidable lineup, he has really not had that much issue with the Astros. And you mentioned his lack of whiffs. I mean, he didn't even... His first start against the Astros, he got more whiffs than his second start, but regardless, both very successful starts. Let's touch on that in a couple minutes. But first, I mean, just to put some context to this Astros lineup, last 2 months, Jose Altuve, 175 WRC+, Alex Bregman, 150, Yordan, 168, Kyle Tucker, 129, and then a whole bunch of depth pieces around it. Jeremy Pena, who you and I like to trash quite a bit, had a 125 WRC plus the last 2 months. How about Yanir Diaz, one of the real surprises this year in the American League, looking like one of the better just depth players in baseball, has also continued to hit really well in this stretch. I mean, a 160 WRC plus the last 2 months. This lineup does not have a weak spot, unless, of course, Dusty Baker insists on sitting Chas McCormick for whatever reason. That one of the funniest things ever. That's just a total sidebar for me, but reading some quotes about him, just like, yeah, Chas needs to earn it, despite the fact Chas McCormick here in the second half is 121 WRC plus, so playing pretty good defense in center field. So good job, Dusty.
Oh, he's been far and away their best center fielder. He's had a phenomenal year. What is he talking about? Sitting him on the bench? Yeah, I don't know. That's just, like you said, maybe that's a side note here. The Astros are going to hit. They are going to hit. Now, are they going to pitch late in games? Because here's a note. Similar to how the Rangers have not fared well in their bullpen all year, the Astros haven't been that bad. But since August, bullpen hasn't fared well. Since September 1st, 4.89 ERA collectively. And since August 1st, it's just over 4.5. That's not great.
They do have, they do have individual guys in the bullpen who, over the last 2 months, have still been pretty good. I mean, Ryan Presley, Phil Maton, Kendall Graveman, Brian Abreu. Brian Abreu, by the way, has not given up an earned run the last 2 months. That dude scares me. He throws cheddar, as everyone likes to say, cheddar. And he's shredded through the Mariners lineup a number of times. So individually, I think they still do have some good pieces in that bullpen. We saw Ryan Presley give up that 3-run home run to Cedric Mullins earlier this week. But outside of that, the pitching staff, you're right, hasn't been quite as good overall as a staff. They have a 4.5 ERA the last 2 months. Some of that has been rotation instability as well. Bullpen has struggled, Lyle, but yeah, back half of their rotation has really just limped to the finish line. I don't know how else to describe Christian Javier, JP France, and Hunter Brown over the last 2 months besides they've just been terrible. They've been awful.
Which is funny that the Astros have played this well in spite of all that, in spite that they've had struggles as a collective unit in their bullpen, despite that over half their rotation's not pitching well. I guess that just speaks volumes to how good their offense has been and how much that Yordan Alvarez guy kind of means to this team, maybe just a little bit. But they have not pitched well. So again, glass half full for the Mariners. There will be spots in this Astros pitching group where you can take advantage. Now, they've jumbled their rotation around like the Rangers have to set it up to face the Mariners. So you're going to get Justin Verlander, you're going to get Framber Valdez, and then you'll get Javier. Similar to how I said the Mariners need to win that Logan Gilbert start, they probably need to win that start facing Javier because we'll see what Framber and JV do. But as a whole, it has not been great on the pitching side for the Astros. It's not been their strong suit as of late.
Mariners haven't had much trouble, though, with Valdez this year. I mean, really, you remember the last start, very memorable start, thanks to Framber for kicking the hornet's nest and throwing at the Mariners, because I wrote it down here as this. It's like, well, yeah, August 19th, Framber only went 5 innings, 10 hits, 6 earned runs, and 1 hissy fit on top of it.
And they've had success against Justin Verlander, too. Now, they haven't seen him since he was reacquired by the Astros, but they had a couple starts last year where they lit him up. They certainly lit him up in that playoff game, despite not winning that game. They can hit Justin Verlander. Again, there are opportunities for the Mariners to totally take advantage in all of these games. And you're right, they have hit Framber Valdez. It has not been the same guy as a season ago who the Mariners just could not put a barrel up against. They can hit all these guys.
And Verlander really is showing signs of age. Run prevention for him is still pretty good, but the velocity's down. The walk rate is up. The strikeout rate is down. There's a lot of things across the board where Verlander's just, you can see the age kind of getting to him. And there's a reason, like, once guys hit 40, usually you start to fall off and you don't sign them to pay him $40 million. But, to be honest, the Astros just wanted to win. And I don't know where they'd be without Justin Verlander because, as we've mentioned, the rest of the rotation has either been injured or really struggling here in the second half. And they just were able to offload a little bit of payroll and give up a prospect. In return, they get Verlander back in a crucial spot that they need. I'm curious to see how they'll play against Javier as well. I mean, Christian Javier came into this season as a sleeper Cy Young candidate, but he hasn't been that at all. He hasn't even been close. He's been pretty terrible this year. And I remember watching him last year as that 6th guy in that rotation thinking, man, this dude could be like a 2 on another team. But this year, he's barely stayed in that Astros rotation. It's Mariners have their work cut out for him against this rotation. I highlighted before, they get the 6 best starters they will face over this 10-game stretch, all in the first 6 games, I think.
Now, if the Mariners can hold serve with the Astros throughout the first weekend, not when the two play each other, but while the Mariners are playing the Rangers and while the Astros are playing the Royals, which, by the way, Cole Reagans will start in the Friday game, so hopefully that's an opportunity for Kansas City to steal one. If the Mariners can hold serve, they've got a real shot to win the West. And I say that because not only will they face off with the Astros, but Houston, aside from Seattle, has the toughest remaining schedule because they will get the Mariners for 3. And then they finished with the Diamondbacks, who are fighting for an NL wildcard spot for their lives. So they're going to be playing for something. So the Astros don't have an easy schedule that final week. If they can find a way, the Mariners that being, to stay neck and neck with the Astros through this weekend, it's all out in front of them. If the Royals could find a way to steal 2 of 3 and win this series again, which they just did recently against the Astros, by the way, and you have Cole Reagans going, it's very possible. And we know the Royals, despite being a bad team this year on paper, they give teams fits. Yeah. Major fits.
They are annoying as fuck, is what you meant to say, Lyle.
Yes, they are annoying as fuck.
Man, whew. So in this series for the Mariners, I mean, this is about as good of a pitching lineup as you could ask for. Not only just what they've done this season, but also what they've done this season against the Astros. I mean, Luis Castillo has had 2 remarkably good starts against the Astros. He pitched 14 innings, only giving up 5 earned runs, 10 total hits between the two, low strikeout totals, but regardless, Mariners, I believe, won both of his starts, very effective. George Kirby went 6 2/3 innings against the Astros the series before the break, just 1 earned run on 6 hits. And then I highlighted Bryce Miller's 2 starts, 6 innings back in May, with 5 strikeouts, 6 1/3 innings on August 18th against the Astros, just 2 hits across 2 strikeouts. We talk about the other team shuffling the rotation, but the Mariners don't need to shuffle their rotation in this aspect to give themselves the best chance at winning this series. And then again, on top of it, like Bryce Miller's already pitched well against the Astros this season. There is a chance he regresses a little bit against the Astros and they finally see him a little bit better. But in terms of the 3 guys who have had the most success against the Astros this season, Logan Gilbert also had a pretty good start against the Astros. But like, this is what you wanted, and they're going to have the opportunity to do it.
Yes, they are. I'm probably not as nervous for the Astros series as I am for these 2 Rangers series. And you're picking between the lesser of 2 evils. Obviously, I'm nervous for all 10 of these games. But just the fact that the Mariners have had success against Houston, it's at home. There's signs that Houston may be vulnerable and the Mariners could get to them. And the Mariners care more about the Rangers than anybody else. Just if I have to pick the lesser of 2 evils, it's about Houston feeling a little bit less pressure. But it's going to be a tough series either way.
We've seen it, though. We've seen their success against the Astros. We know this team can beat the Astros and beat them pretty handily as well. So there's not really as much worry when you go in there to face the Astros because you know that roster has beaten the other roster handily 8 out of 10 times they've played this season. And you could absolutely, it doesn't worry your mind that they can go in there and they can also win 2 of 3 at home with your 2 best starters throwing in the same series. So that ends up working out pretty okay. And then those 2 starters turn around and they'll start the final 2 games of the season, 2 games you absolutely could need to win. If you're sitting 500 in that 10-game stretch at that point, 4-4, you need those 2 on the bump. Fascinating series though with Houston. I'm looking forward to it. The Astros bats, again, very good, struggling back half of the rotation, kind of shaky pitching staff here down the stretch. Going to be interesting. They've been mostly healthy too. They've gotten those guys back from injury, and they should be primed to go for the playoffs as well. Should they make it? So it's that's good. Yeah, man. Wow, so much to look at.
There's a lot, and we will say this is not the same Astros team as the one in years past. They're still good, but they are not as lethal as they were a year ago or just over their last 6 years or so in general. This is probably the weakest Astros team in a few years. Not to say that they're not good. They are, and they are not to be taken lightly by any stretch. But they don't feel like they're sitting on Mount Olympus the way they have been in some other years.
No, the depth has shown that, and really, as you said, the pitching has not quite been there for them. But they've been pretty good here down the stretch. They still mash. I still have an image of Yordan Alvarez burned into my brain that won't go away anytime soon. And the Mariners are going to need to beat them here down the stretch to have a chance to get into the playoffs.